Right, so hello and a very warm welcome to the brand new Two and Under podcast. This is a new podcast from some Newcastle fans in Australia, some of us from the UK, some of us who are in Australia. We're really excited to get up and running. We're going to be doing it probably bi-monthly. We'll be bi-weekly. Sorry, we'll be doing two shows a week, and then we'll be doing specials every now and then. We've got the watch along, which the first one was very successful the other day, and there'll be a couple of other special pods at times when things happen, which with Newcastle is pretty regular. So you might be seeing and hearing from us a bit more often than twice a week. So my name's Jack. You can tell from my accent that I'm not Australian. I'm from a little town called Prudhoe of about 10,000 people, which is about 15 to 20 kilometres outside of Newcastle. I moved to Australia in 2018, moved to Brisbane, and settled in pretty well here. My time supporting Newcastle goes back to the mid-90s when Keegan was first here. It really took off probably when Sir Bobby was there in the early 2000s. I had season tickets. I went to quite a few away games, including a few in Europe. So that's a bit about my background. I'll be hosting this one today, and probably a few more moving forward. So with me, I've got Craig. Hi, Craig.
Hello.
We've got Bobby. Hi, Bobby.
G'day. How you doing?
And we've got Dimitri. So I'm gonna ask Craig to introduce himself in a little bit of detail, but I'm not going to ask Bobby and Dimitri to do that because we've got a bit of a special show coming up later this week where we're going to get a bit deeper into the Australian boys and how they've ended up supporting the Cursed Club. So Craig, I did say that it was a warm welcome earlier on, but you're in Cairns, so it's probably a bit more of like a hot and humid kind of welcome for you. How does it? Do you want to just tell us a bit about how a boy from Wallsend ends up living in far north Queensland?
To be honest, it's all a bit whirlwind. Wife was originally from Australia. She wanted to move back. We thought it was a good idea with everything happening back in the UK, and she let me pick where we wanted to go. Done me a bit of research, and short story of it is, we swapped the northeast of England for the northeast of Australia.
Why not?
Been here for 4 years, August gone, and loving every minute of it.
Similar climate there as well, Craig?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now it's 28 degrees, 80% humidity. It's just like being back on the quayside on a winter's day.
I was going to say, you don't look too sunburned either, so well done.
Nice, the tan's really come out on you in the last couple of months.
It's fantastic, to be honest. Literally, I live my life by aircon now.
Yeah. Aircon bills up, heating bills, non-existent.
We actually were at a friend's house the other day and they had an old-fashioned stove around here. Why? In the tropics. Just not needed.
Yeah, you can understand that in Melbourne, but maybe not in Cairns.
It's crazy. It's getting very warm very quick here. But I imagine everywhere else is feeling the same right now.
Keep your sunscreen on and keep your hat on.
Too right. Too hot otherwise.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to review the Brentford game. A lot happened in the game, and it's probably good luck to us trying to condense it down to 45 minutes or so. But we'll give it a go and see what we can come up with. So the Brentford game. So obviously our new manager wasn't in the dugout for the game. It did feel like things were just going a little bit too well over the last few weeks. There'd been a lot of good news going on. Obviously, we got rid of Steve Bruce. There was the takeover before that. And then a couple of hours before we got the news about Eddie Howe and Lee Charnley went as well. So I think pretty much the only thing remaining is the Sports Direct signs, and then we can really finally move on from the Mike Ashley regime. So Eddie Howe's COVID test obviously felt a little bit more like the Newcastle United that we all know and love, where bad things happen pretty much every week.
Mm.
Obviously, it was quite fitting that it was the first positive result of the season as well. Not a result that we wanted with the positive COVID test, but I think it was a pretty special day. It looked like an amazing atmosphere on the telly. Craig, you were one of the three guys who did the watch along. So that was the first thing that we'd done at the Tune Under pod. We actually got 280 views in total through the whole watch along. So that's a pretty good effort considering we'd only set it up and been pushing it for 3 or 4 days. So what were your kind of main takeaways from the game, Craig? The team selection, anything about the formation or the setup that you really wanted to pick up on?
Biggest thing, and we'll touch on this later on, was Darlow being back in goal. I think myself, along with everyone, was expecting Dubravka to be back in nets. I think that's the big thing of the starting lineup, the formation. Clark being back in the squad, I didn't anticipate that. He had a bit of a stink at the last few games, but he kind of held his own in this one. He wasn't that bad. And Shelby, left back. He's not a left back by any stretch. Why Lewis wasn't put in that squad, I don't know.
Richie.
Oh, yeah.
Not Shelby.
Not Shelby, sorry. Yeah.
That would have been worrying if Shelby was at left back.
Yeah, having
Richie, he would have been chasing much.
Yeah.
Not his ideal position, but he does his best, and that's all we can ask for. But unfortunately, it just isn't good enough. He needs to be further up the pitch. And when he was put further up the pitch, it actually worked quite well. He got a few crosses in. He was playing well with Alan down that left-hand side. But the formation wasn't any different what we used to, but the style of play, the passage, was a million miles apart from what we've seen so far this season and for the last 2 years or so. Couldn't have asked for more for the lads in terms of what they had done. But it was a good overall performance, a very, very good foundation to build on. Could we have done more? Absolutely. We missed chances. Luckily, they missed a chance or two, especially with that disallowed goal they had, and rightly so. That could have been a different matter altogether. But yeah, there was times when, again, the fitness stopped at the end of the game. It's just they need to build upon that over the next few weeks or so, build up that stamina. Last 10, 15 minutes, we were just running on gas, running on fumes.
I think with the formation, it was billed as like a 3-4-3, wasn't it? Obviously, it had Richie and Murphy, who have been playing pretty much in a flat back five for us lately. But it definitely seemed like they were a bit more advanced and a bit more forward, which left the centre of defence a little bit exposed, maybe, especially without a natural defensive midfielder in there, and considering the were being playing so much further forward.
Yeah, we definitely, I thought, the combination of Shelby and Willock, I'm not too sure. As well as we played going forward, defensively, I thought it just left us way too exposed. I mean, Shelby at the best of times isn't known for his tracking back or defensive shape. Willock seemed a little bit out of sorts on the ball on the weekend. He did a lot of running, but didn't really feel like he got into the game or did that sort of Isaac Hayden style cutting in the middle of the park. So if you play the three, the more, not traditional, but the three flat backs with the two fullbacks really pushing on, you need to have a defensive midfielder covering for our centre halves, because our centre halves are, especially on the counter attack, are not the quickest. Let's be honest. So, especially with the pace with Tony on the weekend, he was causing us all sorts of problems on the break. So, I think that's something potentially that we could be look at is thinking, if we want to have Willock in the team, him next to Shelby may not be his best position, and at this stage with the squad that we've got at least until January, probably not the best for the team, I'd say.
I think Ivan Toney just absolutely had Fabian Schär all game, didn't he? I think Schär was it was a bit of a surprise he started after the international break. He was the only player coming back from the international break who did start. you can see why Eddie Howe wants him in his team. He progresses the ball really well, and he did a couple of good forward runs. He's got a good passing range, but yeah, he just couldn't handle Ivan Toney at all. Toney won everything in the air. He was holding things up, laying things off. His link play was really good. Maybe we can buy him back in a few years when we don't get relegated.
Not after he kissed the badge in front of the Gallagher. I don't think that was. That's not going to endear him to the fans.
Yeah. What else, Craig? Then what else did you pick up from the game in general?
Who was that one? Sorry.
To you, Craig. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Was there anything else?
Willock, previously mentioned, he wasn't at the races. I don't know if he's carrying a knock or whether just his head wasn't in the game for whatever reason. Who knows? But it just wasn't the Willock that we've seen previously. I'm not saying he should have carried his performance on from last season, because that would have been impossible to do so, especially at that age. But he was just one step behind everybody. He was slow at turning. He was slow getting the ball away. He just wasn't there at all. And he was the weak link of that midfield. I think if we had that person who was willing to make those diagonal runs from the midfield, see that ball, other than Shelvey, we could have carved them open a little bit more, but he was just a little bit off the pace. But he learned this will be an experience from him. He's only, 21, is he?
22 something, yeah.
21, 22. So it's all a learning curve for him. And maybe his form last season, maybe that got him a little bit. Maybe he's thinking, I've got to try and perform like that every single week, and it's affecting his confidence. Who knows? Or maybe
I don't know whether he's got a bit of Kennedy-itis as well, where we had Kennedy on loan for that season, and he was absolutely brilliant. And then we didn't sign him. We were going to sign him at one point for something like 30 million. We got him on loan again, and he didn't do it. Yeah, he never recovered from that penalty he missed, I think, against Cardiff. That it was absolutely terrible. So, and I think he was playing in. I think he's actually still contracted with Chelsea, but he's playing somewhere, and he was in Mexico or somewhere like that, I think. So yeah, so Willock, obviously, he wasn't going to keep on scoring every game, but he was definitely a weak link in that game. But the problem was Sean Longstaff, when he came on, wasn't much better. I think the only notable things I can remember him doing was give the ball away twice in bad positions.
He's very notorious in turning the worst possible moment in his own half. He just seems to have, for whatever reason, poor awareness around him when he has the ball. So when he receives it off the centre-backs, I think the opposition realised that as well, because as soon as they close the press him, by the time he turns and gets his head up, he's lost the ball. That's where we see when Shelvey's not playing, when Shelvey's not the one receiving that first pass, he's the one who can actually turn with the ball, then we really struggle to get the ball out, which is probably, again, why we're raising the point about Cher, why he's in the team, because Lascelles and Clark are pretty poor on the ball. They need somebody at least to carry it forward in case Shelvey's marked out of the game.
And what about Shelvey then, Bobby? Shelvey, we're gonna talk about Joe Linton a little bit more later, because he was notably brilliant in that game, especially in the first half. But what about Shelvey? Because Eddie Howe would come out and made some comments about Shelvey. Shelvey's not the most popular player amongst Newcastle fans, and it's for obvious reasons. I think he's been ill-disciplined. He doesn't seem like he's doing a lot of work. And I don't think anyone will ever forgive him for that free kick against Brighton when Lewis Dunk was in goal. So what did you think about how Shelvey did, Bobby, in this game?
I thought he was superb. I think when the comments came out of what Eddie Howe said about Shelvey, it all sort of clicked and made sense. And if we're going to play the brand of football that Eddie Howe wants, we need people that are carrying the ball forward, not scared to put a pass in, not scared to get the ball surrounded by the opposition players. And that is Shelvey. I mean, he's got a lot of bad traits that he has in his game, and we all know about that. And I was honestly one of his worst critics. I think I put on Twitter a few weeks ago that I'd give him away and I'd fly there and drive him in the car and take him where he needed to go, because I was over him, especially after that free kick. But he was superb, and he did do a lot more working. I think he ran a lot more. He got back on the defensive end. I remember one bit of play where he was sort of scuffling with two Brentford players and then picked the pass out to St. Maximum, which led to a counter. And I couldn't speak highly enough. And if that's the Shelby we're going to get, long may it continue. Like everyone's got a clean slate now, and if he can perform like that every week, it's good. There was someone who I was talking to who said Eddie Howe's team had, I forget the name. He used to play for us.
It was Dan Gosling.
Dan Gosling.
Yeah.
Who shared that role, and I can tell you now, in terms of talent, Shelby's far and away better than Dan Gosling. So if he's going to play that role, albeit that with us, it's going to be sort of good for us. With the team lineup, I think it identified where we're weak, more so than anything. I think we're going to have to do what we're going to have to do until January. I'm probably more positive than a lot of others on the performance. I think the results from the other games made the performance for us seem worse than it was. Because if the results went as they should have, would have been, that was a good draw, very entertaining. That's what we want to see. But unfortunately, it was happening in the watch along. You're seeing the results coming through and thinking, what is going on? And we need a win. The win was desperate. So, but Shelby, fantastic. Long may it continue.
I think Shelby's done this before. So he had that spell under Rafa just before the World Cup in 2018, and he was absolutely brilliant. Rafa didn't really trust him a lot. He just knew that he couldn't be relied on to follow instructions to the letter, which Benitez wanted in his teams. It's maybe good. He's more suited to having a little bit more freedom. He definitely wasn't in that kind of really deep quarterback kind of role as well, where he was going into the defence. Because and Newcastle had more possession as well. So Newcastle had 52% possession in the end.
When's the last time we done that?
Yeah, 53%. At one point in the first half, we were on 57% on about 37 minutes. So that's obviously that's a massive change, and that's obviously going to be a way that Eddie's Howe's going to set the team up. And Shelby is pretty much the only midfielder we've got who can actually keep the ball and who's capable of playing that style of football, I think.
Yeah, and I think just on Willock, he wasn't there on the weekend. Like he was poor, but he's coming back from an ankle as well. So I think it will take time, but I think he's going to get given the chances because, again, there's no one else there till January. And he's one of the boys that can get the ball and drive it forward. And I think the thing we noticed is all our attacking players got the ball in much better positions. Our XG rating for the first time I can ever see was 2.18 of expected goals, was the fourth or fifth best for the weekend. Brentford only had 1.1. So if you're looking at the game being 3-3, it was criminal that we lost that game. We should have been out of sight, out of mind. It's just a replacement in keeper position and an unlucky deflection. And we're talking about a great win. So a lot of positives.
I've seen a few comments saying that it was a really chaotic game, but I don't really quite see that. I think it may have seemed that way, but actually, they didn't have that many chances. It wasn't like West Ham games and Leeds games where teams were just walking through the middle of us. And we're going to get onto to Darlow in the defence, but we conceded 3 bad goals, at least 2 really bad goals, probably 3 bad goals. And on another day, Callum Wilson had that one cleared off the line. You missed a header just before they scored their third goal, I think it was. St. Maximin had a chance that they put just wide. He also had another chance that he put over the bar. So, we were really progressive and positive, and I don't quite agree that it was a really chaotic game. There were games like the West Ham game earlier in the season, which really was chaotic. There was it was end to end, but they were just running through, and anyone could have done anything that game, and they scored 3 goals in about 15-20 minutes in that game to kill us off. Yep. But there were definite signs that we're not going to be that kind of. I know that Eddie Howe's not got a great reputation for defensive football. So he's probably a good fit for Newcastle in that sense. And we do have good attacking players. But yeah, I think if we can, and I don't know, what did you think, Craig, in terms of Eddie Howe not being there? Do you think that made kind of a big difference? Obviously, Jason Tyndall was on the touchline. We were a bit worried that Graham Jones was going to have a little bit too much influence maybe and go back to that 8 at the back formation we've been playing. But what did you think
I think
Eddie Howe not being there actually
the
impacted?
substitutions. I think Howe may have gone down a different path. I think he should have injected a bit more pace. He made the right choice with Fraser coming on. His ball for Alan's goal was just incredible. But Longstaff, he didn't do anything that Willock was already doing. If anything, he came on and performed even worse. I think Almiron may have came into that position in a slightly more advanced role and just try to kill a game off with pace. I think that's something Howe would have done. Maybe he tried to go the balance of attack with a holding midfielder, which Longstaff just didn't. But we had no other options on the bench really, apart from what there was: Almiron, Fernandez. Who
Gale
else?
was on there.
Gale was on the bench. Yeah, I think the subs he got right bar one, which was a Longstaff one. I think replacing Shaw was good because he was booked. And Shaw's got a little bit of a temper. He's had a few red cards with us, I think.
Yeah,
And I think we was always going to try and get riled up by the other players. And if we went a man down, I think that would have been big advantage for them, and we probably could have lost that game. But subs are okay. I think Howe not being there at half time was maybe not necessarily a negative effect, but there certainly wasn't a positive effect from it. We did come out strong, but then they balanced that out. We finished the stronger of the two teams, that's for sure. And we certainly had the better chances of the two teams. But it'll be interesting to see what Howe does for Arsenal if he's back for the Arsenal game, which I don't even know if that's been confirmed yet. If he's allowed on the touchline,
I don't think he will be, and I think probably the bigger issue is he's going to have 10 days off the training ground as well. So I think that's probably, he's not really going to be able to prepare much for Norwich. I think it's a 10-day isolation period.
Yeah, I think he's got to get a couple of, similar to what happened to the Spurs when we played Spurs the other week when Son and somebody else was about to miss out. But if he had a couple of negative tests, the day before or 2 days before, he'd be good to go. So depending on how unwell he is, perhaps it's just asymptomatic and he's not too bad. He may be able to be at the game, but definitely not being there at training is probably not going to be not ideal for a new coaching regime trying to get their new style implemented as soon as possible.
Yeah. We've got a doctor here as well. Dr. Bobby diagnosed Eddie Howe just from his Twitter press conference the other day. He said that
he looked unwell, mate. He looked unwell, and doing these ones. And I thought, he's either really emotional, which he doesn't usually get, or he's sick. Now I didn't diagnose him with COVID, but it didn't. When it came out, I thought, oh yeah, makes sense.
Who needs club doctors when you've got Bobby in Melbourne?
Yeah, Dr. Bobby, sign me up.
Sign you up, yeah. Mike Ashley probably would have signed you up actually to save a bit of money.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have gone. I don't think.
I think the new owners can probably afford maybe some pretty good doctors.
Yeah, I think so. Out of my league.
You're off the hook a bit there, I think.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask quickly about Almiron as well then. So, Dimitri, Almiron, he was on international duty playing for Paraguay. To me, it seems like he's the kind of player that Eddie Howe will like, and that most managers would like. He seems to do what he's told, and he's full of energy. What do you think about his role, Dimitri, potentially fitting into the side?
Well, I would have said before the weekend, I would have said probably him in the starting 11 over big number 7, but Big Joe was that good on the weekend. It might be hard to push out for the Arsenal game. Definitely, I think Almiron's got a big part to play because the way Howe and his team want to set up is high intensity, quick movement, pace, and work rate, and that's everything that Almiron is. I think can't remember a game after the international duty that he started. I don't think he has. He's probably played limited minutes every time after the international duty. So this week wasn't the game for him. But definitely, I really feel that his energy, when we've got players such as John Joe or even Joe, if they're not getting around the pitch as they should, Miggy's energy up in the top front of the pitch will be very important, combining with Saint Maximan and Wilson. So this week might come a bit too soon because of the way Joe Linton performed, but I definitely feel that he's got a huge role to play.
And I think if he switches to a 4 at the back as well, I think that frees up another space. So if whether it's in the number 10 behind Wilson, because those front three were really good. We're going to get onto that in a bit more detail, I think.
I think on the watch along, I made mention. I think at home, especially particularly against the teams that aren't in the top 4, I think this 3-4-3 high octane go at them is going to be the way Eddie Howe plays. We need points. We need to beat these teams, and we'll just go all out attack. Playing Arsenal, there might be a formation change and someone like an Almiron who can, go on the counter and just, get into space. I think might come in, to the thinking there.
Yeah, I think overall, there's a lot of positives to take. We're going to talk particularly about the front three in the next part. But first, unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about Carl Darlow, and we're going to have to talk about the defence. So that's it for part 1, and join us again soon for part 2. And we'll do the bad first, and then we'll get on to some positives afterwards. Right, so welcome back to part 2 of the Brentford review show. So we need to talk about Carl Darlow and the defence. It was a pretty big call to start Darlow. Maybe that was always going to be the most likely outcome, with Dubravka being away on international duty and only playing. I think he played 1 game against Malta for Slovakia. I think there's pretty general consensus that Dubravka is our best goalkeeper. This has happened before with Darlow, where he's kind of been kept in the team in what seems to be an attempt at protecting his feelings or something, because he's clearly not as good as Dubravka. But Dimitri, over to you. What did you think about Darlow and his impact on the defence and just the defence in general, as well as the goalkeeping situation in the short, medium, and long term for Newcastle?
Yeah, so I was quite probably surprised, I'd have to say, that Darlow started the game. I thought Dubravka's come back from injury now. He's fit. He's ready to go. He's been on the bench for the last couple of games. Darlow hasn't been lighting the world on fire in the last month, really all season. I thought it'd be a no-brainer. I mean, the first goal was an absolute shocking mistake. We've just scored. St. James is up and about. The team's on the front foot, and to concede a goal virtually from the kickoff, really a routine save. I'm not sure what he's doing with his hands. He had to go with his legs. Yeah, he had to go with his legs. The thing with Darlow, he's prone to some brain fade, sort of stop thinking moments. So I don't know if you guys remember the 2 goals we copped at Wolves a couple of months ago. There was a moment where it was a 1-on-1, but he had a chance to come out and close the angle, and he just froze for 2 or 3 seconds. He has these moments where he either overthinks it or he confuses himself, and ends up making a mistake. I mean, on his day, he's been a decent shot stopper for us, and as a number 2 goalkeeper, I think he's quite decent to play a game. But he's not a Dubravka, and people forget Dubravka was our Player of the Year a couple of years ago, and he's probably when the first game he played, I think it was the United game, the first game he played when he was man of the match.
Yeah, he was brilliant in that game.
Yeah, and straight away you could see the difference between, I think we had Rob Elliott in goals and the likes before that, Evan Darlow, and then bringing in Dubravka, who commanded the back 4. His voice was loud. Obviously, great shot stopper. In the air, he can be a little bit susceptible, but nothing terrible that you don't play him. And I always remember Rafa used to say about Dubravka, we needed a goalkeeper like him who who would speak and organise the players around him. And I don't think Darlow does that, especially the way our defence. Yeah,
Benitez copped a lot of grief in some quarters for wanting to sign a goalkeeper. And people were saying you've got 3 good goalkeepers. What you're doing? He tried to sign Willy Caballero and that fell through. But that was, and I think he might have tried to sign Pepe Reina as well.
Pepe Reina as well. Yep,
so
he did.
He obviously wanted a goalkeeper. Dubravka in that first game just absolutely justified that straight off. Carl Darlow is actually 31 years old.
Is he?
Yeah,
really?
He's 31.
He's been with us for a long time, hasn't he?
Yeah, he signed at the same time as Lascelles.
Lascelles, from the Forest. Yeah, yep.
From Forest, so that back in I think it was when Steve McLaren, so it was about 2015. So over that time, Darlow's played about 85, 86 games for us. As Dimitri said, good shot stopper at times, but I think, what did you think, Dimitri, about his impact on the defence? What's it like playing in front of a goalkeeper who's in that kind of form, do you think?
Well, that's the thing. The way we defend, and obviously we know the issues we've had with Kieran Clark this year. Even Lascelles his form's dropped completely off, and that third centre back has been a revolving door. It's been Kraft, it's been Fernandez, now it's Cher. It doesn't fill you with any confidence when you look behind you and you've got a goalkeeper who's indecisive, who doesn't come out, obviously doesn't communicate as well as Dubravka does. It's a big issue. We don't have, obviously, the best talent in the back line, in the back 4, back 3, whatever we play. So you have to make it up with other ways. So organisation is a huge part of the defence. Doesn't matter how talented you are. If you can organise a back 3 or a back 4, you could make do with what you've got. And I mean, we had the similar players with Rafa back 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and we weren't copying 3 goals a week. We had probably some of the best defenses in the Premier League back then, probably a top 10, top 12 defense. So for me, it's both. They're both affecting each other. But I feel if we had Dubravka in goals, I can't think that we'd be any worse off than clearly we wouldn't be any worse off, but you'd have to think Lascelles and Clark, especially those two, seem to be the regulars at this stage. They'd have to walk a little bit taller, knowing that Dubravka's behind them. Especially in the position we're in at the moment, where points are absolutely crucial, especially in the next 2 months to get to Christmas, the New Year, somewhat within striking distance of safety. You're going to need a goalkeeper who's going to save you a point here and there, or who's going to make a difference in a game. Darlow, for me, is not that goalkeeper. He might be a solid 6 or 7 out of 10, but Dubravka can be an 8 or 9 out of 10, and consistently. He can single-handedly win you games or save games for you. So for me, it's an absolute no-brainer that Dubravka plays, and especially with the fact we can't reinforce the defence until January. I mean, that's the only move we can really make at the back. That's obviously not been playing this season, to see if that shores us up at any point. Because I mean, I think the last 3 home games we've got 3 in all 3 games. So you're not going to win many games conceding three games. Even though we're attacking all of a sudden now and we're creating loads of chances, you can't expect us to be creating 23, 24 shots on goal a week.
And I think the really harmful thing about that first goal was that it was just after we'd scored. Like, I think Craig touched on this earlier. So St James's Park was bouncing. We could tell that from the TV. And it maybe just needed that little bit of game management to just maybe, keep pushing, or, try and use the momentum. But the last thing you want to do is concede a bad goal. And that really was such a bad error, one of the worst in the league this season. You feel sorry for goalkeepers when they do that. And the third goal as well, it was kind of a deflection, so there's not much you can do about that.
But even before the deflection, I think he hesitated to come out and clear the lines. If he'd come out when he had to, he could have gathered and we could have reset. He sort of hesitated, and then it was 1v1 and he's pulled off a save. But it led to them getting the ball again near the box, and then that deflection went in. So 100% what Dimitri says is exactly right. He's very hesitant and doesn't give us confidence, which then therefore you can say doesn't give our defenders confidence. So hopefully Dubravka's back this weekend.
Yeah. In the interest of fairness, I should probably point out that Dubravka and Darlow played a good pass to Saint Maximin for our third goal, and he got rid of the ball quickly and he distributed it. It was actually a good pass, and I think long balls or kind of direct passes were a bit of a feature of the game for us. So, but instead of them being kind of like aimless punts forward, they were passes. The defenders did it a few times where they did like a lofted pass forward, but it wasn't actually just like a Steve Bruce style punt, hopeful punt towards Dwight Gale's head. It was actually a proper pass, and I think that was borne out in the possession stats as well.
Yeah.
So I think, Craig, you probably agree that Dubravka's got to come back in.
He has to. If anything, he'll just raise the confidence in the defenders, just knowing that he's behind them. For me personally, what did he cost? £4 million, something like that.
The best signings in recent years.
Yeah.
And if I remember rightly as well, he wasn't even the first choice keeper the club had got him from. That's how we managed to get him.
He was playing in Czech Republic or something, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Something like that, yeah. And I mean, what a find. I'd never heard of him beforehand, to be honest, but what a find.
Yeah. He's probably in his prime age for a goalkeeper. I think he's 32 or 33. So it won't actually be that long before we're looking at sort of upgrading the goalkeeper position. Freddie Woodman, I think we had hopes for him. Maybe it's a little bit too soon to write him off, but it's hard to see when he's going to get another chance. So I don't know whether would maybe be going for someone like Henderson at Man United if the Premier League clubs actually agree to sell players to us, which seems to be something they might not want to do because they're all a little bit jealous. But so yeah, the goalkeeper position will be an interesting one, I think, moving forward. I can just see Carl Darlow playing for like Man City, like Scott Carson does when he's like 55 or something, just getting on the bench every now and then just to fulfill that homegrown quota, and then maybe getting the odd run out like Carson did against us last season. He's pretty much an old age pensioner, I think now, isn't he? But the big clubs seem to like doing that, so maybe we can just keep him. We'll just keep him for 20 years and put him on the bench when we win the Champions League in a few years' time.
You get his
He'd be all right as the third choice, wouldn't he? Third choice would be, in the start of the FA Cup games and the League Cup games. I think he'd be all right. But look, I had this interesting discussion with a friend of mine about the goalkeeper, and a bit like the time when Rafa wanted a new keeper, I think Eddie Howe will want a new keeper soon too. One with a bit more ball playing potential, but whether that comes in January or the new year, we'll see.
Wait and see. Right, so that's the bad stuff out of the way. So let's get on to talking about. I haven't really mentioned him yet so far. I think we knew we were going to talk about him, but Joe Linton. Oh my word! He found his passport. He remembered he's actually Brazilian. The first half was an absolutely just a brilliant performance. I think Craig. What was your view of Joe Linton's performance? Have you picked yourself up off the floor out of shock yet, or what did you think about Joe Linton and the performance of the attacking unit as a whole team? What did you think?
If I hadn't have watched that game and somebody described to me how good Joe Linton was, I wouldn't have believed them. Generally, something you'd have to watch with your own eyes, because we've never even seen a display come anywhere close to that from Joe Linton before. It was genuinely, he was easily the best player on the pitch, bar one incident, which again I put down to a lack of fitness. But yeah, he was easily the best player. That first half, he was unplayable, and that's a word. There's a couple of
clips doing the rounds of him kind of doing skill on the touchline and then getting a pass away. I think that
he completely
I was just
on the right wing completely. Yeah.
The incident you referred to there, Craig, I think he just wanted to remind us all that he is still Joe Linton and that he can still fall over when he's clean through on goal.
Yeah.
But I think we'll have to really, really give him credit for that performance, because especially in the first half, he was absolutely fantastic. And he's one of the other players that Eddie Howard name-checked and bigged up. So maybe that's some good motivation for you there. He knows what he's doing.
If that's the case with what's to come, then bring it on. Definitely. Absolutely. There'll be some of the Arsenal players will probably be looking at that game and going, hold on, is this the same Joe Linton we played against for the last year or so? Because one thing Arsenal teams have always suffered from is teams that are physical against them. And that's one thing Joe Linton brings, pace and physicality. There's not many players which have got both in their squad, and you wouldn't want him running towards you. Albeit he's probably going to put it into where Rose Ed when it leaves his bottom of his foot. But you never know. He could find that top corner one day. But yeah, he's very physical. And Arsenal historically they've never liked physical teams, and he's definitely a physical player.
And it was interesting. He started on the right hand side as well, so it was kind of like there was the three of them. There was Joe Linton, Saint Maximin, and Wilson. But Joe Linton, I mean, we've been told for the last 2 years that he's a left winger. We know he's not a number 9, despite Steve Bruce's attempts at playing him there. But he's been kind of playing off the left, which is where I think when he was at Hoffenheim, and he somehow persuaded somebody to spend £40 million on him. He was a left attacker, but it was interesting. He was on the right hand side, and his heat map's pretty impressive. He was up and down the side for the whole first half at least. Dimitri, you were going to jump in before.
Yeah, I was just going to say, even when he's been god awful on the ball and looked like he doesn't know how to play football, his work rate, especially of late, I don't think can be questioned. He's definitely every time he's played this season, he's put a shift in at least. I mean, his quality in the final third has been terrible, but he does seem to get up and down that wing when he's playing on the wing. And like Craig said, his physicality could be critical for us, because having someone with that pace and physicality is very unique. I mean, if you've got Saint Maximin and Miggy Almiron buzzing around as well, adding another player like Joe Linton, if he's going to bring that sort of performance with his strength and power on the ball, it gives us another dimension that we haven't had for 2 years since we paid that 40 million for him.
I think everyone accepts he's just not going to be a pinnacle striker. It's not what he's good at. It's just one of the greatest mysteries of all time that Newcastle signed him as a replacement for Rondon, and that they expected him to score a lot of goals. He's just not got that in him. He hasn't got the instinct. And the transfer fee is not his fault remotely. So all he can do is play his best. As you said, his work rate's not been in question. If we're maybe now it's a fresh start for Joe Linton. He gets a clean slate. To try and forget about the fact he cost £40 million, and just take him for what he is now. And I think that's what Eddie Howe will be doing. So I think it would be good that sometimes on Twitter I've noticed that he's got like a bit of a fan club. So wherever he does something, because he's got so much negativity towards him, whenever he does something remotely good, he kind of gets a lot of support. But he actually was good. He actually was good on Saturday. So fair play to him. Go on, Bobby.
I think I'm putting my hand up as one of his fans on Twitter. I'll back him in. I think there's a lot of intangibles that we got to remember, that he's come to a club that was coached by Steve Bruce. He come to a team that had no attacking prowess whatsoever and was stuck up front for the first part of the year. And then when Wilson came, he was sort of a man in no man's land, because the manager only saw him playing up front. I'm a big follower of the German league as well. We get a lot of coverage here in Australia of that. And so watching him, and I was astounded by the transfer fee, don't get me wrong, but I could understand a young, talented player coming into this league, because he did show signs. But again, not as a striker. He's that free role where he can do what he wants in the attacking third and cause issues. It opens up a lot of space. So I think Eddie Howe will be licking his lips with Joe Linton, because Eddie Howe talks a lot about space and creating space and the intelligence. And something that I think Joe Linton's underrated for is his intelligence, his game day intelligence. He's been found out like a deer in the headlights when the ball gets to him right in front of goals. But then his intelligence around everywhere else is first class. So I wasn't as shocked as everyone else was at his performance. I just think he's got an actual manager who can coach and put him in a place where his skill set will come to the fore. And there is a player there, not a £40 million player, but if we'd bought him for £16 million, I don't think he'd cop the grief the poor lad's copped over the couple of years. And look, I'm buzzing for him. I think it's been a long 2 years being one of his supporters. But yeah, well, let's hope he can kick on.
And it's definitely, I think that's a really good point you've made about Steve Bruce managing him, because there's few players that fall into that category. I think Lewis is probably one of them as well. Never really got a chance. When he did, he wasn't that good. But we do have to remember that they've actually been coached by Steve Bruce, who is not a coach. He's not. The players said that they seem to like playing for him because he let them have lots of days off, which might be something that I would say about my manager, but maybe not when you're supposed to be an elite football coach. So yeah, it will be good to see if Joe Linton can maintain that level of performance, and if some of the others can get in and get the improvements as well. I wanted to just talk briefly about we haven't talked about him at all. Alan St. Maximin. He's the maverick. He's usually the player that gets a lot of attention. He obviously got a really good goal. He got an assist as well when his shot deflected and went to Joe Linton. Could have had a couple of other goals. Craig, what did you think about St. Maximin's performance and his role going forward?
Well, I don't know if he got classed as an assist for the first goal for Joe Linton's. The second goal.
Probably not. But it was his shot.
It was a deflected shot, wasn't it? Yeah, that fell into his path. He was first off, he was quiet, but again, I think that's just purely because there was always 2-3 players around him. I think a few clubs now have worked out that if we just surround him with pretty much everybody on that left-hand side, he's not going to do much with it unless it's just an absolute bit of magic, which he is very capable of doing. But I think he's more effective on the counter-attack, and that's where we're seeing it with the third and final goal from him. He got that ball from Darlow, passed it out wide to Fraser. Fraser, that was the best pass I've seen Fraser do for us. Probably the best thing I've ever seen Fraser do for us.
It was a good one too. It was basically a big one.
I didn't know Fraser played football, to be honest. I hadn't seen him do anything. I thought
it's the Eddie effect.
I think that counter-attacking role, that's his best. Slow build-up or anything, it's too easy for players to get onto him and crowd him out of the game. But when the game's stretched again, people started getting tired, that sort of thing. That's when he can come into his own. He's just got that extra gear which he can go into when everyone is just running on empty, just running on fumes. And that kind of showed again within the last 15-20 minutes. He's one of these few players which fitness level is still good. That could be because of his age, or he's just a naturally fit person. But with the new training regime, if you're going to get even fitter again, then I can only see him adding more goals later into the game than what he will do earlier on in the game. I think that's where he's going to be most effective within the last quarter of the game, because his team's tired. He just doesn't seem a bit like Amaron in that aspect.
There was one point where in the first half where Tyndall on the sideline was screaming at St. Maximin because he just wasn't pressing his man. It was right on the touchline. And I just thought that's a little bit of a potential sign of things to come. I think he's going to have to really work. He doesn't have to be the best defensively, but he's going to have to still put a bit of a shift in some games, tracking back. Obviously, that's not what you want players like that doing. But if you're going to be playing in a team where the team is key and it's about the team rather than individuals, I think he's just going to have to be careful that he is actually doing his fair share of defensive work as well. But you look at his close control and the way he just runs past people. He just kind of dribbles, kicks it forward, and just goes past them. It's good.
Well, that last run where about, I think it was the 81st or 82nd minute where Joe completely fell over. I reckon he might have been the talk of the town if that had turned up to a goal, because he went past about 3 or 4 players. was almost Ben Arthur-esque for that goal against Blackburn. Not Blackburn, Bolton in the Premier League.
Yeah. He does have the touch of the Ben Arthur's about him, doesn't he? He's definitely got that side, yeah.
For me, Ben Arthur seems to have a better accuracy on his strikes. Saint-Maximin seems to blaze over quite often. I mean, he had that one in the first half where he got into a brilliant position, completely snatched at it and blazed it over. But he seems like he's always desperate to be the man to do it, which is fine. If we can rein that in slightly and try and work off now Joe Linton in form and Callum Wilson, I think there's even a different gear for Saint-Maximin to go, because you got to remember he's been playing, like Craig said, he's been playing almost one out most of the time, saying he's the ball, Saint-Maximin, it's halfway, go dribble 4 players and do something. I mean, now with how, yeah.
All right, keep going.
No, go for it. No,
we're talking about the tactics of Steve Bruce, where that he was the man. It was get the ball to Saint-Maximin. Hopefully, he does his magic, and we.
You
know, I think
almost,
that's but it suited, and I think he liked that. He enjoyed it because he was the man. I've got a big watch this space with Saint-Maximin and how it goes in a system-based team. Like, I love him. I think, we talk about Ben Arfa, him, Robert, Ginola, all these, the French flair players we all fall in love with. But if we're going to be a team of 11 that is all meant to be playing this system, he's a very interesting watch for me going forward.
The good news is he likes playing against Burnley, so we've got them coming up soon. So we can pick him in that game, even if we don't pick him in anymore after that.
Do you think Joe Linton's performance as the game progressed took a bit of the pressure off Saint-Maximin? Because a lot of the focus then went on to Joe Linton, or players trying to get to him, to man mark him, to try and stop him running, that it actually opened up his game a bit more.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it needed to happen, a long time ago. When you've got one attacking threat, simple for the opposition to go, well, we'll go put 2-3 people around his area and mark him out of the game. If you've got 2 or 3 attacking threats and someone like Shelby who can unlock it, well, the defence sort of doesn't know where to go, and it causes that and gives them a bit more freedom, as we saw in the second half. As they tired out Brentford, it opened up the space, and then he sort of exploited that. So, of course, the more attacking weapons we've got, the better.
Yeah, I think having good players is always a good thing, because it definitely means that, which is a pretty novel idea, isn't it, really? I don't think Mike Ashley ever understood that. But having good attacking players obviously is going to pull people away and let Saint-Maximin be free a bit more to do his thing. So, right, that was a good positive chat about the attack there. We haven't really talked about Callum Wilson. Probably don't have time. I think it wasn't his best game. He still could have had a couple of goals. He looked a little bit rusty, but I'm sure he's gonna get better, and especially if he's got those players in form around him. So we're going to have that's the end of part 2, and we're going to come back for part 3 and sum things up and get a bit of a idea about takeaways for the Arsenal game and beyond. So we'll see you in part 3. Right, welcome back. Part 3 of the first 2 and Under podcast that we've done. It's been a lot of fun so far. We've all enjoyed ourselves. I think we've had such a game with such a lot to talk about. It's been pretty easy to keep going and find things to talk about. So I just really wanted to ask you, Bobby, what are the kind of takeaways for the next few games? I know that you like to think of the games you were talking about, thinking of them in blocks of games. So this was I think you said it was a 4-game block. So we've got 3 games left of this block. What are your main takeaways from that Brentford game, and what do you think we can take into Arsenal and beyond?
Yeah, so I think reading the comments from a lot of Newcastle fans, a lot of negativity in the fact of not the way we played, but in what it means for our season. I think there's a lot of doom and gloom already. It looks bad at the table when you look at it and being on 6 points, and even Norwich have had 2 wins on the hop, and you think, wow, we're gone. But I just want to read something quickly. little bit positive, like I am. I'll thank at Sundancer 1977, the great Premier League escapes. Leicester in 2014-15 was 7 points adrift with just 9 games left to play. They got out of it.
Yeah.
The Mackems, unfortunately, in 2013-14 was 7 points adrift with 6 games left to play. And 3 of those were Man United, Man City and Chelsea. They still got out of it. 2007 and 8, Fulham won 4 out of the first 33 games. They went on to win 4 out of the last 5 and were safe. And we go back Portsmouth in 5 and 6 with 10 games left. They were 8 points adrift. Wigan with 3 points adrift with 9 games left, and then picked up 21 points in 9 games, more than anyone else in the Premier League to finish 15th. So we have 5 points from safety and have 26 games left to play. I am still very confident that after 10 days of what Howe has transformed our team to look like, we will be in a better situation come January. And I know the December fixtures look really daunting, and they would if we had Steve Bruce in the dugout. We'd almost give up on all of those games. But Eddie Howe's teams like to play against the top 6 sides. He goes at them. So getting a result against your Leicesters and your Man Uniteds and even, sneaky draws here and there against some top teams isn't out of the question. So, look, I'm very positive. I think going back to that, I do it in 4-game batches. So Brentford was the first, and I thought if we can get 7 or 8 points out of those 4 games, we'd be in touch. I think it would be a good result. So with Arsenal away, Norwich, and then Burnley at home, we've got 6 points or 7 points left to go. So I think we can do that, and then look forward to the next 4. But I'm very bullish about where we're going to be.
So what you're saying is let's get to about 5 games to go, about 10 points adrift, and then let's just kick into gear and start winning. That's what
I'm happy. I'm happy for a great. I'll be celebrating, but I think it'll be more like the Wigan example there, where you go on a run and you sort of look back and go, what were we worried about back in November? So I wouldn't be this. I wasn't this bullish and confident under the old regime. I just thought we were going to lose every game, and we went in not wanting to lose by a lot. Just to see the dramatic improvement. I never thought in 10 days we can totally shift ourselves from being the way we are to have 354 passes in a game of football. That's like 3 games worth for us usually. So what he's done in 10 days is phenomenal. It'll just build. And I think he's got better players with us than he ever did at Bournemouth. And Bournemouth fans might have a go at me for saying that, but like you're talking about St. Maximin and Joe Linton and Callum Wilson and, Shelby, I think, a lot to look forward to.
That's great. I love that positivity is just brilliant. And that's something that we haven't seen at Newcastle for a long time. And I actually agree. I don't think looking at the league table actually does us any favours. I think it was Tyndall that said something along those lines as well. And I like the way they're not talking about January as well, because they want to concentrate on improving the players they do have and the things that can affect for the next 9 games.
I honestly think Howe sees a squad of players, the majority he can really improve and be really top half of the table sort of players. And so not talking about January is a smart move, but I think I said it before, if the results went the way we expected on that night, the Saturday night or Sunday morning, wherever you were, if the results went the way we expected, I think everyone would be positive about what they saw, but the results were so out of whack. And thank heavens Leeds lost. But the results were so out of whack that I think everyone was just on a downward spiral and thought, we're doomed here. We're doomed. But I wasn't too concerned, I don't think.
I think that's a perfect positive note to sort of finish on, unless Craig or Dimitri, you've got anything to add to that? You're not allowed to be negative after that.
Well, I was about to jump in to say about the last 5 games. I wasn't sure if you guys have seen our fixture for the last 5 games, but we may have, if we're 5 games to go with 15 points that we have to get, I think we may be in a bit of trouble. I'll leave it at that. I won't.
I remember when
say who we've got.
Sunderland got out of theirs, though, they beat like Chelsea and Man City, I think, didn't they? So
yeah.
Well, but I don't think. Let's hope it doesn't get to that stage.
No, hopefully it doesn't get to that. But we've got Liverpool at home, City away, Arsenal home, and then one could be a relegation decider in the last game. Burnley away at Turf Moor. So hopefully we're well and truly safe.
We've got St. Maximin, so we'll be all right. You can play them on his own.
All that means, Dimitri, is our January and February are quite easy, so we'll be all right.
Yeah.
That's it. I love it.
You've got such a positive outlook. I'll live that.
That's only because Eddie Howe,
mate. January itself, there is some winnable games there if you take a look. I mean, New Year's Eve, we've got Everton away. A bit hit and miss lately. We somehow managed to scrape that 2-2 draw when Pickford didn't realise where the goal line was. In that 2-0 win last year, which was probably, apart from Leicester away, was probably the performance of the season, I'd say. That was Graham Jones' first game, I think, when we beat Everton 2-0 at Goodison.
Yeah.
But Everton away, Southampton at home, Watford away, and Leeds at home. So there's definitely some winnable games there. And there's always one team every year which goes down in free fall after January. There's always one. So who that would be is anyone's guess. But I would say probably the bottom 7 are the ones that are in real danger. Obviously, we're unfortunately one of them. But I'm with Bobby. I do think we'll stay up. It'll be touch and go. It could come down to as little as goal difference. Who knows? But
I think it's a really key point you've made there as well about not writing games off, because under previous managers, and even to be fair, under Benitez to an extent, you just used to write games off. I know that you've looked, Bobby, at Eddie Howe's record against the top 6 clubs, and it's generally been quite good. So we're at least going to have a go, and we're going to take it to them. And you can't predict what's going to happen. So let's keep that. Let's channel that positivity and keep that going. I think we can agree there's some real reasons to be excited. This is a good time for us to be starting doing this. It's going to be an exciting time for Newcastle. It's going to be touch and go probably this season, but I don't think we'd have it any other way. So I think it is Newcastle. So we've probably all got inbuilt defense mechanisms that think everything's going to be bad, because usually it is bad. So I'm sorry if we've kind of got anybody's hopes up who's been listening to this or watching along.
Just abuse me on Twitter later on.
Yeah, it's Bobby's fault. You can blame Bobby for it. So I think we'll bring it to an end. So thanks everybody there. Thanks to 3 of you for contributing. We've actually got later this week we've got the Arsenal preview show, and I'm going to be having a bit of a chat with Bobby and Dimitri and also Mark, who are the Australian Newcastle fans, about how people sometimes with absolutely no prior connection to Newcastle end up supporting a club that hasn't won anything since 1969, when there's so many other clubs to choose from. So we're going to get into that later in the week. If you liked what you've seen and heard tonight, then please like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a follow on Twitter. We are at TuneUnderPod. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been really, really enjoyable. We'll see you in a few days' time. The other thing just to mention is that we won't be doing a watch along for the Arsenal game, because it's a good kickoff time in Australia. It's a 10:30 kickoff in Brisbane, and that would be 11:30 in Victoria for you boys.
Yep,
that's right.
So I think we're all going to the pub. I know that in Brisbane we're having a big meetup. There's about 20 to 30 people said they're going to come. And I know there's meetups in probably in Sydney and Melbourne as well.
Yeah.
Craig, you're going to have to set up the Cairns Newcastle Supporter Club. If you want to go to the pub and watch it.
2 of them.
Yeah, there's 2 of you. Yeah, you can. That's 2's enough for a club, isn't it? I think that'd be right. But I was going to say to go onto the Aussie Mags Facebook page as well. They've been good with helping promote us, and they promote all of the meetups as well. So thanks very much, and we'll catch up with you later in the week. Cheers.
Cheers, lads.
Thanks, guys.